Into economic development, the AADC board may ask numerous board topics such as incentives, AADC bylaws, articles of incorporation, development, infrastructure, land acquisition, and matters related to the desired direction and plans for economic development, as well as general issues and matters related to current and future needs, expectations for the AADC. The AADC board of directors may reach board consensus on the mission, values, priorities, expectations, milestones, funding / incentive, options, and opportunities for the Amarillo and the AADC. This time, I would turn it over to our board to discuss with our staff.
So as it relates to our budget and, how we handle our operations, my question would be, how we've handled this issue versus how we've historically handled issues such as this. Can you expand on that? Is this in similar vein that we normally would? Kevin?
So what you're asking about, what, with the constrained budget, or
Yes.
just the questions about the budget versus expenditures?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we've operated, I guess, for the last 33 years, with the, knowledge that once a budget was approved, that approved the expenditures, as long as we did not go over, our budget for the year. I think with, the comments that were made, last week, by, outside the city, the council's outside council, that would change that, and certainly, would be different from the way we've operated historically for the last 33 years. It would change the way we've operated.
Can you be clear on where we are, what was approved, last week, and what has not been approved of our current budget?
So the way I understand, approval and I know the city manager, Grayson Pat, sits on our board, and Laura Stores, the city's, assistant city manager and CFO, they're both, advisory board, or part of board members, and so, y'all may clarify that, but I think the way I understand what was approved was our operational budget, and salaries, and then also, any contractual, obligations that we have, that support our projects. Is that?
I have to go back and review the minutes, but I think that's basically summarizes it.
So what was not approved in the budget?
Out of operations, obviously, bonuses have been, a topic, and then also, no, marketing, dollars were, approved. And then also no, project support, dollars, as it relates to memberships, in organizations. And then also the enterprise challenge, with not having the project support approved was left out of that as well. Doug, am I leaving anything out?
No, I think also left out of, our budget would be any dollars that we would, need to maintain our, real estate, those kinds of things. So mowing or, anything that we had to do with, our portfolio of properties, we didn't get approval for those dollars.
So you mean memberships, so like, we can't fund our dues to the city chamber, so we're no longer a member of our city chamber?
So there's about 6 organizations that we pay dues, to out of that project support money that wasn't approved. That would be the Amarillo Chamber of Commerce, Porch to Plains, that's an organization that Amarillo is a founding member. And then, you have High Ground to Texas, that's our regional economic development group. Team Texas, that's our state economic development group. Most of those organizations bill us in October, just because that's when fiscal year starts. And so not sure about Porch to Plains. I know that Team Texas, High Ground, The chamber, bills us in October, and so those are due at the first of the fiscal year.
So can you give some highlights of the benefits of being part of these organizations? I mean, I would assume, you know, we're out there to promote this great community, this great city, and what opportunity does that bring or inhibit? if we're
Well, I
not
think
part of
with the
it?
chamber, obviously, you know, being a good community member, we're one of their largest, or if not their largest, member. Gives us, access to all their events, we sponsor all their events, and I think that's important for us to be, good community members there. And then, with Portsmouth Plains, obviously, being a founding member, that's been very important the last few years. With transportation, the transportation, with I-27 and that expansion has been their main focus. And then also, you know, getting TxDOT dollars. I know that organization lobbied, really good for us to get, the expansion. I know we're all gonna think it's a headache, but the expansion of I-27 from Hollywood down to Canyon, that, making that 6 lanes instead of 4. That was one of their, large goals. Obviously Team Texas, that's one of our marketing arms that we, function with. Our team, there's 5 of us that travel, intermittently throughout the year with that group that, where we go market with other members of the state, to different trade shows and different, venues that we, participate in, so.
So the question I have, Kevin, can you, elaborate with, not approving of the budget, just the operation of the budget itself? What impact would this have on the AEDC for you and your staff to function on a daily basis? Things that have not been approved?
Well, I think with not approving the marketing budget, it puts us at a competitive disadvantage. You know, even if it's for a short time, it puts us, you know, we're competing, you know, our number 1 competitor is 120 miles down the road in Lubbock. They don't have those constraints put against them as far as when it comes to marketing, their city. But by not being able to participate in some events that we've got coming up, in the next, you know, 4 to 6 weeks, it certainly puts us at a competitively disadvantage, compared to those cities. And so, you know, I think we don't know what that impact could be right now, but it could have long-term impacts because, I mean, I will tell you, people know what other cities are doing. They have media alerts and, you know, we know what they're doing, and what's going on. And so this certainly, has the potential to put us at a disadvantage competitively, you know, and it's a competitive market out there. And so, it certainly has implications of that. Michael and Doug may wanna chime in on that. They've been at this a long time as well, and so.
I'd just think anything on timing, there's a lot of this that moves, even in the 12, 13 years that I've been in this business, I've seen a speed, that has increased versus, you know, a decade ago, and we had a lot of, we need it yesterday, when we're talking to prospects, and, anything that maybe slows that up a little bit could end up being a disadvantage.
I'll throw this in real quick. I did check with staff real quick here. The motion language was motion to adopt resolution number 0930-24-1, amended to only include expenditures necessary for salaries, contractor obligations, and operating expenses, by Don Tiff, second by Josh Kraft. That's all the information I have here.
So I think that's what he said.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Grayson.
You mentioned we had a couple events coming up. What, like, can you give us examples of what we're not gonna be able to participate in and that impact of that?
Well, I think, I know we've got a couple of consultant events that we're gonna miss out on, with, you know, site selectors. Those are, you know, one of those is a national event, one of them is a regional event. You know, I did talk to the High Grand of Texas, you know, even though we're not gonna be able to pay our dues yet, we're hosting their annual meeting. Their annual meeting's gonna be, the end of October. They are still gonna host that. We'd already paid the sponsorship fee for hosting that meeting. The CVB's been helping with that event as well. We're co-hosting that with, Canyon, and we're looking for that to be an exciting event. We, you know, hopefully they'll give us a little grace on our membership, since we're a founding member, I think they will, but, you know, one of the things is, I did have, contact with Sonia Clark out at Bell. We had been invited, by Bell Helicopter to participate in the Association of United States Army. It's an event that's in Washington DC, that's coming up this month. I know that we would not be participating in that, just because we didn't have the funds to travel. And then also not sure where that puts us. They have that event twice a year, and so, we may not be able to participate in the spring, depends on how long it takes, for those, marketing dollars to be freed up.
Let me circle back on my question on budget and expenditures. Are there other EDCs in the state that operate in a similar fashion that we have in our budget and the way they operate?
I would say the majority of the EDCs operate, obviously that's, you know, I've been in contact with Carlson Schwab, who runs the Texas Economic Development Council, and that's our state association. We have about 1,000 members. There's around 700-800 EDCs, and the majority of the EDCs operate in the form and fashion that we do.
So, how would our best practices and their best practices compare? I mean, by not being able to approve our budget and being proposed the amended ways to do bylaws, what kind of a competitive disadvantage would that give us?
I think it goes back to, you know, the earlier question. I mean, it certainly, puts us at a disadvantage. And then, obviously, you know, we may not see those implications for, you know, a year or two, but it certainly has the potential to put us at a huge disadvantage compared to our competitors.
So when we're competing for a project, kind of walk us through that and who all would be involved and how wide is the spread and how, I guess my question is, how competitive are those projects we're looking at and talking to?
Well, I think it matters. I mean, and Doug and Michael or Holly or Paul can chime in on that. I mean, one of those is Cacique. That was hugely competitive. There were, I think, 120-something cities that were, considered, and they narrowed that down to 22, and they did that in about an 18-day span where they visited all 22 cities. Those were all in West Texas, Oklahoma, and I think maybe Kansas, that were considered. And certainly, you know, you don't win every one of those competitive races. We happened to be lucky enough to win that, and I think it's because we had a good product to sell. The city of Amarillo is a great product to sell, and, you know, we had, what we needed. We had land, we had the milk shed that they need. This part of Texas is now, one of the 5 largest milk sheds in the country, and so obviously that helped. But, you know, it was a very competitive, race, to get that project. You know, we've had other projects that were, very competitive. You know, like I said, sometimes you win those, sometimes you don't.
Going back, I have a question, going back to the budget, after, correct me if I'm wrong, there was a statement made, after reviewing and looking at the AEDC budget, informed that it wasn't to state codes, or can you comment on that? What was that about?
I think that was news to us about that we've been operating, outside of state guidelines since our inception. I'm not sure, I haven't been provided any case law or anything that shows that. Obviously, the city council's outside, legal, team, described that. I think, obviously, that's a bold statement, to say that we've been acting, outside of our, state guidelines for, you know, 34 years of our existence. Certainly, I have not been provided anything, from, other than the opinion. I haven't been provided any case law that says that.
What about from our city attorney? Have we been provided anything from them?
I don't think Brian's weighed in on that. McWilliams, our city attorney, has not weighed in on that.
The city council has leaned upon Mr. Hyde on this matter.
So who does Mr. Hyde represent?
City council.
Not the city?
For the resolution they put back in July, it was city council's legal counsel.
So why are the two different ones?
I can't speak to that, I wasn't here at that time, so the resolution covers some of that, but I can't speak to that, unfortunately, I don't have that information.
But we do know that he represents the council and not the city.
Yes. Well, I say that, he represents city council, obviously city council is the city, so
We have a city
he's one of their
council.
advisors, as I am, as Brian is, as Laura is one of their advisors.
His contract has been renewed.
It's more of a pay-as-you-go, I suppose, is that correct, Laura? I would say that's more pay-as-you-go. They've retained the services, is what it is. So if you retain service of legal counsel, you use them as you need them.
If it's taxpayer money, isn't there some kind of contract? I mean, you can't be an open-ended, pay whatever you want.
Back in the resolution, they authorized his agreement and retainage of services.
Okay.
Yeah, that's pretty common for legal services. And my apologies, I wasn't here when that conversation happened, so I can't speak to that. All I know is your rights and reads, so.
So what is our attorney opinion, Underwood companies,
On,
on the city hire them new attorney, and some restriction, all this?
we have, today, that's what we're gonna discuss in the discussion item, retainage of, outside counsel.
Right.
To visit about, the budget constraints. So that's what's coming up in the next item, but, yeah. We'll engage, I mean, the board's gonna consider outside counsel, and then obviously that'll be up to the five of y'all to choose whether you wanna do that or not. Or to go, you can obviously could go with Underwood, or you could go to outside counsel.
So I have a wondering about clarity. We have engaged the council, been, upfront and tried to be as, clarify these issues. They were doing this financial review. My understanding, it came back clear. They noted the range, but then have we been giving any direction on when the budget could be, reinstated to full amount because of this document the city provided?
I think that they didn't really give a whole lot of clarification, as far as when they approved the budget, how long the constraints would be. I don't know that there was given a specific time frame. So and I haven't had any communication with, council, as to what the next steps would be, or city staff in that matter. I know that you and I have not had, as to what that looks like, so I can't really answer that question.
I think it's important, because if we're not able to promote our city right now, that we need to figure out those answers. So I don't know what would we need to do to get that resolved, or find those answers and when.
I know that, that it's a discussion item, on the council's agenda tomorrow. I think there's a couple of discussion, as it relates to ADC, so maybe tomorrow, maybe we'll get some more clarity on that.
Yeah, the intent for tomorrow is that our city internal auditor will provide a presentation to the council. Having completed this review, the council can then discuss it if they so wish, and they can take it from there. I do know, they did from the discussion last week, I know Mr. Hyde had offered to communicate with you all to collaborate on budget, protocols, policy, so I don't know if he's reached out to you or not. But I think that's forthcoming, is my understanding as well.
He's not reached out to me, and, I think there'd be a conflict of interest if they represent the city council members versus he doesn't represent this board. So I think there'd be an attorney conflict.
Yeah, he would be representing you, it'd be collaboration, and so if whether you choose to have Mr. Carter talk to him or your own legal counsel talk to him, that's your decision. And, but he wouldn't be representing you, he'd be working with you.
Okay.
I think that's the intent.
I think that.
I can't speak
within
for him.
representing the council members, there seems to be confusion on who he represents, I guess. Any other questions?
I have a request, because I'm the new in this type of position, but always I work as a solution. If not possible, we request to the range, let's go money back 750,000, because big issue is 750,000. And board approved me 100,000 a year. So what the 22, 23, just like we write a check for, new check for 100,000 official. The result is, the problem is solved, because some board members pointed to Kevin, can just transfer money, whatever. So this is the solution, because those people have money, so let's go with money back and resolve this thing very easily. And then we go further by the law and legal opinion, attorney's opinion and all this stuff. Because see, fight is not solution for growing umbrella. So it's possible we request to the range, hey, 750, because they have multi-million grants available, they have funds. And they just money back, and then what you guys before 100,000 a year, we write a new checks for 100,000 years. And then board decided 250,000, then we decided 250,000 CTA approval and all this stuff. Well, just solution. We try that way. If possible, we try.
I mean, we certainly could, ask the range, if that's the avenue that they wanna pursue, that'd obviously be up to them. It's certainly something that we could pursue. If this board wants to do that, we certainly can do that.
Yeah, I think what we're working hard to do is to make sure our policies and procedures are clear, within a approved budget, and to see if we can move forward with this. Of course, I don't think it's good for our city or promoting our city to be fighting with
Right.
a board that we're trying to help, facilitate growth in our city. So, I think it's about moving forward and looking what we can best do and best
Right.
practices and clarify any misunderstandings that have been happening.
So local citizen worry about the 750,000. Is a legal, illegal, is God knows. But simple thing, that range, just like it worked for, great for Amarillo, is better solution. They just money back and then you issue the new checks. Is a real easy solution. No fight and everybody's happy.
The money given to the range or as a membership was approved by this body. Anything like that would, that'd be proposed, that would have to come from the range, and this body would not be able to ask for it back. But if they want to propose something like that, we would be, obviously going to listen. That'd be my opinion, because, that is money that we're giving them for operations and to do the good work they're doing. So if it did come back the other way, they would have to initiate that, I guess is what I'm saying.
We don't force them, but we, as a friendship, we try. Give me the name and list, I just try. Because this fire is again and again. Attorney is involving more fire. The solution, just money back and there's write officially checks and problem is solved. And in the future, we not do anything wrong, we just, attorneys advise and city council advise and we just go further as a good things, a good path.
In response to that, thank you for that comment. I would say this, my opinion, it was not so much about the range. It was about, were we following our policies and procedures properly when we expended that money in the form of a membership. And, our policies and procedures were silent on that subject, that they gave us guidance in order to do that. So, the way we've operated is as long as we were within our total budget, that we were within our policies and procedures. Our budget, our policies did not speak to it one way or another. So What we've done is, made recommendations, this board, we approved them last board meeting, in order to clarify that, okay, what can we do? And what cannot we do in order to, make sure that we stay in compliance, with our policies and procedures? So to me, it happened to be the range, and I'm totally supportive of the range, they're gonna do great things, for economic engine for this city. But that particular thing happened to be the range, but, to me, it was more about, were we following our policies and procedures? And to me, we were, because our policies and procedures did not speak to the subject. So, that's how I would differentiate, that. It was the range, but, it turned out to be a bigger issue than that, in my opinion.
I'm with you, Josh. Seems like a simple solution, but, clearly there's been some, policies and procedure gaps, as well as the need for total transparency. As a newer board member, we've learned a lot in this process. And, I think it's evident that we need to add some additional layers of transparency, just so that the citizens are comfortable.
My personal opinion, attorney involving this big fire. Because every attorney have a company have ego, and they go, because they want to get their money. And all this taxpayer money, both sides. So we have to stop this thing and save the money, this is the solution, that's my point.
So let the range be aware of the situation, which they probably already, like Kevin was saying, throw back in their hands of the range they would, and let them offer a solution to help the AEDC kind of put the fire out, is what,
Yeah.
that's pretty much. And which we can't speak for the range, what Kevin said, not sure what the range would do or say, so.
Absolutely.
That's something we as a board have to decide, say, okay,
And you can't, the mayor has said this as well, you can't, ask for the money, legally, you can't ask for the money back. That's been made clear by council.
But we're doing on our end what we can do to rectify the situation, so, it is more clear what our policies allow us to do. Would you mind, Kevin, you have those handy, what we recommended last time, what we approved in our policy to,
Yeah, we made a couple of recommendations, and this was after the meeting that, you, Scott, and, Andrew had with, the mayor and Councilmember Simpson, was to, make a couple of recommendations. Going forward, would be to any expenditure, over $50,000, would have to be, approved. If that expenditure wasn't approved in the budget, would have to be approved by, this board and for council, or any line item, that exceeded 50,000 in one category would have to also be approved by, board and council. Which, had we had these policies in place, when the range came up, then, that policy, would have sent that item to, the board and council for approval.
you would have given us guidance.
It would have given us
Which-
guidance, that's
yeah,
correct.
Yeah, which we didn't have. And then there's the third one was anything over, was it 500,000 has to be?
Oh, anything over 500,000 has to be, signed off, any incentive payment or any payment to any vendor has to be signed off, if by two members, that's me, the board chair, if that goes, as a wire or payment voucher, because we use either, some people like checks, some people like wire. And so any transaction over 500,000 requires two signatures. And then the city has controls on those, as well. I think they have to have two, signatures as well. Is that right, Laura, on over is it, I don't remember what y'all's number is.
Yeah, over, 5,000, they have to have, physical sign check.
Oh, yeah, physical sign checks over 5,000.
So that process is we sign off on the request for that to be made, and then where does that request go?
It goes to the city.
And what does the city do? So they physically, they'll take that, and what do they do with that request?
So, with a request that has, approval coming in from Kevin, or Doug, I mean, depending on the situation, if it's just a regular, like a payment voucher, just they're paying an invoice, they process that on their side, through our financial system, and it goes through, one approval if it's less than 5,000, 2 approvals if it's over 5,000, and then it runs through our payment process, so it's either a check is cut or an ACH direct deposit is made, depending on the vendor's preference. If it's something, larger and more, something that's maybe not done as often, especially the larger ones, we normally don't, send out checks for really large expenditures. A lot of times those are facilitated through wires. So what happens on that end is as, an expenditure comes through, Kevin or Doug will send an email and say this, has been approved for payment. They'll provide wire instructions. We do have a follow-up procedure where we verbally confirm the wire instructions, just cause there's lots of fraud that goes on. And then a wire is entered into, our banking system by, one of our, financial management team. And then it has to have second approval. All of our wires have 2 approvals on them before they're released.
Yeah, thank you for that clarity. I think it's important to note that we, when I say we, the team, the ADC team doesn't actually send those wires out. And so it's a great checks and balances and procedures that you'll have. So thank you for that clarification that as our fiscal agent, there is processes to make sure that it's done correctly.
Yes.
So on the policies that we approved last board meeting, with the restrictions and the amount, guidelines, the city council, how they feel about those?
They did not, well, I think the way I understood it, I think there was a question asked by one of the council members whether that policy, was needed. It's not, because I think the way the, outside counsel worded it, that would make that policy null and void because we've been operating outside of guidelines for the last 34 years. So you wouldn't need that policy because of the new policies that they would implement. Where I think if I understood correctly, that we would take our expenditures every, either 2 weeks or every month to council, and those would have to be approved on a per needed basis. So it would actually not, that policy would not need it as far as the $50,000 policy. It didn't really address, I don't think, the other policy, the signature policy I know of, but I know there was a comment about the $50,000 policy, that it would be null and void, after the new articles of incorporation were written. I think that was the comment.
And so out of 35 years that the AEDC has been operating under these procedures with their budget, this is the first time in existence that it has been brought up that our budget is not within guidelines.
As far as I know, I mean, I've only been here 5, Doug's been here 14, and
Yeah, so we've never had a question about that previously. This is Mr. Hyde's opinion. I would say that we, as staff, don't agree with his opinion, that we're operating outside the laws of the state of Texas. So there's certainly that. There's some difference of opinion, and I think that's why y'all probably need clarity on that issue.
So, I think I asked this question earlier though, that there's
many ADC, or EDCs in the state that operate under the same system we do. So by your comment, if we were operating out of the, outside the laws of the state, then there's many others that are doing the same?
Yes, sir. If you extrapolate that across the state of Texas, Mr. Hyde's opinion, then certainly, I would say way the majority. I mean, it's not just like 50%. I would say it's a much higher percentage that operate the same way we do.
Which is operating our budget like any municipality does with their budget, where you can go over in some line items and not in others. The city of Amarillo goes over in several of their line items, and they're under in several of their line items. At the end of the year, if it's under, like this year, I think their budget's $499. As long as that budget stays under $499, and an expenditure doesn't go over 50,000 of the original cost, then they're allowed to, to operate. That's their policy, obviously, but, we didn't have that policy, but we were operating under the guidelines of being able to manage money, between line items.
Wouldn't that apply if we were under budget as well? Would we be forced to spend the money if that was how that worked? Versus being good stewards and.
I think in theory, you could say that,
Any other questions for the staff? Okay, well, this was very, insightful. I do, we'll move on, but I do think we do wanna work together. We wanna move forward. It's not good for our community to have this going on, and anything our board or our team can do to help move forward on this, I think we're gonna work hard and get in the same direction, so. With that, let's move to our, agenda item number 4. We're gonna discuss, consider, and take appropriate action on engaging outside counsel for the opinion on the recent guidance of the city council on budgetary matters.
So this item would, consider one of the council's outside, legal counsel. One of their, credentials was that they had, attended, for EDC training, they'd attended the Texas Economic Development Council training. I've attended, I don't know, probably 5 or 6 of those. We're required by law to do that every 2 years. At least myself and a member of the city staff, Laura, has gone the last 2 years, to that training. I know Doug and Michael, have taken that training through the years. And so, with that, one of the foremost, experts on, economic development, corporations, who actually teaches the class, we have reached out to him to see if we could engage him as a client, to, advise us on, the legal counsel that the city council, got last week, and so, or 2 weeks ago, or actually it was last week, last Monday. And so, Jeff Moore with Hoffmeister and Brown, has agreed to take us as a client if, this board, approves that. And so, like I said, he's been teaching that, TEDC training for several years, at least as many years as I've been in the business. He's taught that class, and so, and advises, many EDCs as well, as legal counsel. Certainly answer any questions, about, that.
So you're saying that's the same training that Mr. Hyde said he took, has been part of? This gentleman, Mr. Moore,
Has taught several segments of that, training. It's a 6-hour, continuing education training. The state, or the Texas EDC does that, I don't know, 6 or 7 times a year. They teach that training, because it's required of all of us as EDCs that collect that sales tax. We have to take that training. At least 2 members of the group have to take that every year.
Every other year.
Every other year, that's right, sorry.
He's in Austin.
No, they actually, the one we attended last, I think, was in Lubbock. They have them, they try to do it regionally across the state. I know we're gonna host one of those, probably next year. We'll host that, cause all of the EDCs, the 800 or so EDCs have to take that training.
We're basically hiring the person that teaches the classes.
That's correct. Would be,
So
yes.
we wanna find the best representation to give, since there's no case law been given on this, we wanna find the best opinions we can to make sure that we're operating correctly and best stewards of what we're doing for our community.
Correct.
So Kevin, what would be the implications of amending our, articles of incorporation as recommended by the council's attorney, or the city attorney, the council's attorney?
You know, not without, I mean, they didn't go into specific detail as to all the the changes that would be made. Obviously, most of those changes have to do with budgetary. You know, I know one of the changes was to have to bring, I think, payments to council, on a regular basis to have those approved. It certainly would could put us behind competitively, by having to wait to get those expenditures approved, on an as needed and not have the, you know, the budget, power to use the budget that's been, you know, approved. You know, like I say, we had, you know, our marketing budget's been $800,000 per year, and it outlines not specifically every single thing we're gonna spend marketing money on, but it does, give us some, leeway, and if council takes that leeway away, it certainly could put us at a competitive disadvantage, by changing, if it goes that specific on those articles, but that was the only one that I know was specifically talked about in the change on the articles of incorporation. I don't know what other changes would be made.
What I might advise is, once you get a copy of that, then I think you can have a better conversation as to what that would or would not do. I'm not privy to what he's looking to present to you all, so, I mean, once you get it, you'll be in a better position to be able to review that and analyze it, how it would impact you at that time.
One of the comments I heard, though, was literally, I think the mayor said this, literally approve every check that we write.
That's the way I understood that, is by approving our expenditures at a council meeting, every 2 weeks or every month.
And going back to the other Curtis question, are there any other ADCs, well, the ADCs that are across the state, do they operate under this same system?
I don't know of any, but that's not to say that there's not, but I don't know of any that operate, and we're pretty well connected, with the EDCs across the state through our association, and I've reached out to Carlton Schwab, that's president and CEO of the Texas, Economic Development Council, our state association. He does not know of any, that operate that way, and so, certainly, like I said, could put us at a competitive disadvantage by operating that way.
Sorry, who's Carlton?
Carlton Schwab, he's president and CEO of our Texas, Economic Development Council, which is our state association. There's about a little over 1,000 members.
He'd be very tuned in.
Yeah, and he's been doing it for, I think he's been there a little over 30 years.
And he didn't know of any?
He does not. And also on the outside counsel, before you just consider, his hourly rate, we don't have to pay a retainage fee, it would just be as needed. His fee is $275 an hour.
So if we do this and, our city council has already had their findings, so we take it upon to go to approve this, to do this, and the outcome, what is likely, I guess we don't know until it happens, that, if we find that we have been operating within guidelines versus what the city council found, how are they likely to support our findings? And, okay, if we're gonna take the time to do this, to prove that we've been operating within guidelines and.
I think it's something that this board would need to discuss with council, once those findings, cause we don't know what those are yet. Certainly, I think we would wanna give the opinion that we have, obviously to council and to the citizens of Amarillo for them to digest, you know, that outside opinion. And so, just as council's done, with having their outside council give an opinion. Cause it just is, I mean, opinion is an opinion, so, it doesn't make it, you know, the law is the law, and so you get an opinion from an outside council on that, so.
Discussion?
Questions? Anybody have any questions?
Do we know how many other municipalities Mr. Hyde is representing or has represented?
I think when they gave qualifications, 10 or 12 cities or EDCs that he's represented. I think that's what was said, in the qualifications, that were asked for, so, at the council meeting. I think it was 10 or 12 is what I heard, Helen.
It'd be interesting to know of those 10 or 12, how many are also operating outside of?
I think that's a good question.
Yeah.
Have they provided any information on his recommendations are been done at the CBC?
I have not seen any, I mean, I did a couple of, trying to do some, I'm trying to get the cities that he's represented. That way we can look at that and see what that looks like, at least going forward, we know kind of what we're looking at, but I have not got those yet.
Maybe we can ask for that. Reach us out.
So some EDCs, it's my understanding that they operate as a separate 501c6 as we do. And there's others that operate as a department of the city, is that correct?
There are, there's whole different ways of management, organizationally, how the EDC's managed. Obviously ours has been a separate organization, but still has those, obligations to have the city, and the board approve, obviously budget, projects, those kind of things. But then there are some of the smaller EDCs that operate within the city as a department. Ours, and there's several of those here in the Panhandle that operate that well, or operate that way. I mean, there's a few that come to mind. Booker, Perryton operates that way. I think actually Canyon may operate that way as well, where they operate as a department of the city. We've been an independent organization, that operates through, just those approval processes where projects, and budget, and then obviously all of the EDCs operate the same way as their boards are appointed. Every one of those 800 or so, the board's appointed by the city council.
So I think we just need to have, we wanna find the right person who has the right credentials, who teaches the classes to help find the right opinions, cause this is so important for not only our ABC, but for the state, and for how everyone's, runs their budgets, runs their procedures. So that's why we're, have this on, considering this action on our agenda. Like Deepak said, we wanna get along, we want to move forward, and we want to, be able to represent our city, that we're a thriving place. We all love this place. It's the center of everything with all of our things that are going on, and whatever we do to find the opinions, the right, processes, then we need to make sure we do that.
I think you would probably wanna put some type of dollar amount, on, how much you'd wanna spend. I mean, like I said, no retaining fee, but, is that, 10 or 20 hours of work? However you wanna do that, but that's what I would recommend, that we have some type of, limit where we have to work.
I think how many hours they need for that type of question?
Man, I can't imagine that taking more than 20, but I don't even know that it'll take that many. So,
6,000 hours.
yes, that would give you 20 hours, like a little over 20 hours, it would be 6,000.
I think, if I remember right, Mr. Hyde said he thought he could do his for 5,000 to 7,500, and they approved up to 10,000. If I remember right, just to give a little leeway. We might do the same thing, if it happens to go over a little bit from what we're anticipating, maybe up to 10,000, maybe my recommendation.
And council did approve our operational budget, I know that may be a question, but council did, and inside that operational budget, is professional services. And so this, actually, we do have the authority to spend that operational budget, so this would come out of those professional services. So is that a motion? Are you making a motion?
Well, yeah, I'll just write that down. So, yeah, I would make a motion that we retain Jeff Moore as our, EDC's counsel, to give us an opinion on the recent, budgetary matters that, the articles of incorporation matters that, Mr. Hyde has, proposed to the councils, to the city council, to give his own opinion. Up to, not to exceed $10,000.
We have a motion, is there a second?
Also, a question.
Sure.
Can we share this, there says no any taxpayer burden? We share board members for this $10,000?
You asking
If possible.
for us to pay for it?
Each members have $2,000.
If you did that, then that council would be representing you and not the AEDC. So I think that's the decision you have to make. You're trying to hire outside counsel to represent you as a board, or if you or the whole organization. So. Yeah, I mean, that's certainly a great question. I think we just need to make that decision.
Yeah, I would say, I have my own personal counsel, so I would pay for them, but yes, I think this, if they're representing the AEDC, then I don't want any conflicts or anything like that. That's a great question, appreciate the clarification.
In the city, it's also clarification, the city of Amarillo is paying the legal fees on behalf of the council to Mr. Hyde, correct?
We have a motion and a second, is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? It's a 5-0 vote. Well, with that, I appreciate this discussion, I appreciate all the questions and staff being able to do that. I do have, some comments or statement that I would like to offer up as from being the chairman of the board. So I pass this out. I'll pass this out after I read it, but forgive me, I have allergies again, so. But in the recent months, the Amarillo City Council has raised questions about the Amarillo Economic Development Corporation, or AEDC, leading to a financial audit of our spending. Including our membership to the range, the audit came back with no issues of concern. The AEDC remains committed to economic growth, job creation, and expanding our local tax base. Over the past 30 years, the support of dozens of city council representatives and the efforts of the AEDC have driven excess of over $2 billion in capital investments across our community. And in the last 10 years alone, our efforts have created over 7,000 jobs and added $390 million in our payroll. We are committed to making Amarillo stronger, providing more opportunities for our family, friends, and neighbors. It is our hope that we can move forward together. I emphasize together. We have some truly incredible opportunities on our horizon, and it is critical that we all move in the same direction. That said, it is important to highlight concerns that our council continued dialogue regarding our organization that is negatively impacting our economic development efforts, particularly the council's overly political move to hire its own attorney, who represents them and not the city or its citizens, to rewrite the Articles of Corporation that has enabled our unparalleled economic development success. These articles of incorporation are similar to other EDCs across the state. They have served as a foundation for our organization and many across Texas since voters approved it in its creation in 1889, 35 years ago, and have held steady. Huh? 19. Oh, sorry. 1889. Oh. Yeah. Well, maybe. Yeah. Sorry about that. Thanks for clarifying that. And we've held steady on our multiple councils, facing the challenge with lax council and unanimity, and is an unnecessary cost of taxpayers. The AEDC has hired Jeff Moore, partner with Brown Hausmeyer, one of the state's leading economic experts, to ensure the AEDC can continue serving the citizens in Amarillo and growing our economy. So, with that, I appreciate today, and we will now adjourn our meeting at 12:20 p.m. August 7th, 2024. Thank you all for being here, and appreciate it.